This is crazy, y'all. 5 cruises, 7-night cruise on the Norwegian Breakaway, 5-night cruise on the Carnival Elation, 4-night cruise on the Carnival Radiance, 5-night cruise on Royal Caribbean's Radiance of the Seas, and a 7-night cruise on Holland America's Koningsdam. Well, all 5 of those cruises are either more or less per night per person than what I paid for my hotel in Jekyll Island last night, a Hilton Home 2. It begs the question, what's cheaper, staying on land or staying on a cruise ship? And beyond that, let this sink in. Of those 5 cruises I just showed you, one of those cruises, well, it was less than $30 per night per person. Figure that out. Which one of those 5 was the least expensive cruise? And also, I got some cruise news for your face. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views for your Tuesday, October the 11th, 2022. Well, I just rolled back in from Jekyll Island, Georgia. What an interesting spot that was. Had a fun couple of days. Spent one day in Jacksonville, around Jacksonville, St. Augustine with my brother-in-law. We went to a new gambling place there called Best Bet. And it was a gambling place unlike any I'd been to before. No slot machines. And the way that they made it legal is they had a designated player. The tables had a dealer, and then they had one dude that held all the money. Have you ever been to a casino like that's all I'll say about it, but it was wild. Best Bet in St. Augustine. And then last night we spent the night in Jekyll Island, Georgia. What a weird little tourist spot that's not really a tourist spot. Just a tiny island with some resorts and a beach. I don't know what I think about Jekyll Island. I'll have to reflect on that some more. But I do have a couple big cruise news stories for you today, and I want to talk about the difference between the amount. I stayed in Jekyll Island one night last night. How much do you think I spent for that hotel? We had dinner out. How much do you think I spent for that for 5 people? So stay tuned till the end. I'll tell you which one of those cruises I talked about was the least expensive, and I'll also tell you how that compares to my hotel stay. But first, let's smack you in the face with some cruise news. Cruise news story number 1, and let's call this story, oh, now that makes sense. I did a story the other day about the couple that is cruising over to where the World Cup was going to be, or is going to be, over to Qatar in the town of Doha. Thanks, everybody, for the helps with those 2 names. Qatar into the town of Doha. And when they booked their cruise, they had bought tickets for the World Cup. That's the city that's hosting the World Cup. And they were notified that the city was no longer going to allow cruise ships to dock there, and it messed up their whole World Cup plan. So if you didn't see that video, go see that a couple days ago. But that story did raise an interesting question. How come the city did not want cruise ships to dock there? Well, the other thing that's going on in Doha is the hotels are scarce. They don't have enough hotels for people to stay in Doha, and the prices are going sky high. So there's a lot of money to be made for World Cup hotels in Doha. And so what the city decided to do is they decided to rent out some cruise ships and use the cruise ships as a hotel. And so now these rented cruise ships are now going to be taking up the berths, the docking spaces there in Doha that other cruise ships will want to use. So at least it makes sense. The latest cruise ship to be announced that's going to be rented to stay there is an MSC cruise ship. The MSC Opera will be in service from November the 19th to December the 19th to accommodate people as a hotel during the World Cup. How about that? I really don't watch a lot of football, a lot of soccer, but I do like watching the World Cup. I believe the USA is in it, so I'm sure at some point during this World Cup season I'll watch a match or two. Do you regularly watch soccer as an American? Do you like it? Do you watch the Premier League? Those kind of things? Or do you don't have the soccer bug? You like to stick with the more traditional U.S. sports? It's baseball playoff time season. Of course, my Tampa Bay team that I could have rooted for as a bandwagon fan, they've already been knocked out by the Cleveland Guardians. What the heck? Cruise news story number 2. Well, a sad story. A sad story of loss. Now we've come to the end of the road. Girl, I can't let go. It's the end. It's the end of the road for the Carnival Ecstasy. The Ecstasy is on her last sailing. She left out of Mobile, Alabama. She's doing a Western Caribbean cruise that includes Cozumel, and there's all kinds of dignitaries on board. John Heald, brand ambassador, is on board saying a fond farewell to the Carnival Ecstasy. Now, the Ecstasy holds about 2,000 passengers. It's been in service since the early 90s. So she's seen her heyday is over. The report is that she has serviced 5 million passengers in her life. And so it's weird. Like, I always think about the residue of experience lingering in a place. Very palpable in some places. For example, if you go to Washington, D.C., and you go to Ford's Theater, and you look at the booth that Abraham Lincoln was in when he got shot, and if you go across the street to where he actually died, and you see the pillow where his head laid, the bloodstained pillow, you feel that moment because you have the residue of experience right in that physical place. I think it's true with cruise ships also. How many people's memories, how many different people stayed in those cabins? How many people did the line dance on there? How many people went through the buffet line? 5 million, right? So all these memories, 2,000 at a time, all these memories stacked on top of each other. It's sad. It's sad, but life goes on, and it's good for older cruise ships to get out of the fleet, new technology to come in. Cruise lines able to make more money per cabin with an upgraded, capacity, all those business things. But from an emotional thing, it is sad. I'll kick it over to you. We talked about it before. Have you ever been on a cruise ship that's scrapped? How do you feel about it? Does it make you feel a certain way, or is that just part and parcel with life? Maybe both of those are true. Leave a comment below. All right, let's talk about these 5 cruises that I teased you with at the beginning of the show. I didn't really say it. All 5 of those cruises are coming in at less than $50 per night. Wait till I tell you what I paid for my hotel in Jekyll Island last night. $50 per night for these cruises I'm going to tell you about. But before I get there, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, well, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Look, for better or worse, I'm one of the cruise news guys. I mean, I feel like we have a variety show here, but at its core are cruise news stories, and I'm really committed to this idea of going through the news, curating the news, and trying to give you the things that I think is important to cruisers. And I would love for you to be a part of the locafam, be a part of this community, and that's why I asked you to subscribe. I asked you to subscribe also because it will help YouTube know that you want to see the show. And so when you subscribe with the notification bell on, as soon as the show comes up, they send you a notification saying, hey, that show that you're interested in is on. Go ahead and watch it. And so, that's the big call to action. If you could and would and care to be a part of the Loca fam, subscribe, notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Thank you in advance. Thank you in advance. All right, let's talk about these 5 cruises. The first one I mentioned was the 7-night Norwegian Breakaway. It's doing a Canada and New England itinerary from New York, New York. It's sailing on October the 23rd, and the sailings start at $348 per person. That equals $50 per person per night for the base fare. $50. All these are going to be $50 or less. $50 a night on a cruise ship's pretty inexpensive, and that's a nice 7-night cruise. All right, let's talk about the next one. Bahamas cruise from Jacksonville, 5-night on the Carnival Elation. Starts November the 14th, 2022, starting at $147 per person for a 5-night cruise. $147 per person, $29 per night. Wow. 4-night cruise, Baja Mexico cruise, Carnival Radiance, also starting on November the 14th. This one, the total fare per person for the 4-night cruise, $149 per person, or $37 per night. $150 cruise, 2 $150 cruises. That's amazing. 5-night Western Caribbean cruise from New Orleans on Royal Caribbean's Radiance of the Seas, starting on November the 12th, $238 per person. That's $48 per person per night. And then we've got the 7-night Mexican Riviera cruise from San Diego, Holland America, November the 26th, a 7-nighter, $261 per person, or $37 per person per night. And let me say this, these cruises were chronicled in an article that got the prices off of Cruise Critic. Of course, the prices can always change. This is just a moment in time. But wow, those are some pretty inexpensive cruises for the next couple months. So I think by now you know the answer to the question, did it cost more per night, per person on the cruises that I was looking at, or more per night, per person at the hotel we stayed at last night in Jekyll Island? Of course, the cruises are winning out. Last night on Jekyll Island, we stayed at a Hilton Home 2, and for the two of us, it was $220 for one night. That's $110 per night per person. It did include continental breakfast this morning, or hotel breakfast, but it didn't include any other food. We went to a local pub there. We had dinner for $5. That dinner was fairly expensive, or it was at least $20 per person. Like, it's no secret that I'm a cruise fanboy, and I do have a little bit of a, mischievous streak in me. And I tell you, when I start talking to people about cruising, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go on a cruise ship. I'd much rather go on a land vacation. It takes every bit of strength that I have not to just to laugh. Ha 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 ha! Not to laugh in their face. Cruising is such a better value right now and most times than a land vacation. You are going to get more bang for your buck. So if you're on the fence, whether to get on that next great road trip with your family, I would seriously say consider cruising. It begs the question, what's the cheapest cruise you've ever gone on a per night basis per person? I wish I had the spreadsheet of ours. I don't even know what the cheapest is. Have you ever had a cruise per night per person less than $30, $29 per person? That's pretty crazy. And look, full transparency here. If you want to get that cheap cabin rate, you've got to be flexible. You got to be flexible in the type of cabin that you're booking and where that cabin's at. I've got some tips on how to pick the perfect cabin. Where at, what type of cabin. You can check those tips out. Watch this video next. This is Tony for Lido Loca. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.